Malay people. Who are they? The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines them as a member of people of the Malay Peninsula, Eastern Sumatra, parts of Borneo, and some adjacent islands. But we are going to talk about a specific group of Malays, which are the Malays of Malaysia. The Malay culture is a blend of a myriad of ancient cultures, ranging from the Siamese culture, Javanese culture, and most prominently, the Indian culture. Hindu values were largely practiced by native Malays before the Islamization of Malaya in the 15th century. Flash forward a few hundred years, and we now have the Malay culture that we see today. If we compare the culture that we see today with its initial roots, one could easily see that a whole lot of changes have happened. But the question is, what are those changes and why have they happened? That is what we will be exploring in this documentary. While there are a multitude of factors that have helped mold Malay culture into what it is today, there are two phenomena that stand out. Arabization, which is a social phenomenon in which Arab culture and traditions influence a non-Arab country or community, and Westernization, which is a social phenomenon in which Western culture and traditions influence a non-Western country or community. We will delve deeper into the details that make up these phenomena and how they have influenced the Malay culture. First, let's talk about Westernization. The history of the Westernization of Malay culture started in 1511 when Alfonso de Albuquerque went on an expedition to conquer Malaya. This started the West's colonial powers over Malaysia that would last for over 400 years. The Portuguese conquered Malacca until 1641, where the Dutch powers took over with a powerful economic agenda. Moving on to 1786, the British came to Malaysia, chasing after the country's abundant supply of tin and rubber. They ruled for 171 years till the independence of Malaya was declared in 1957. While the West had released Malaya from colonialism, their influence on Malay culture was far from over. In the 1960s, the Western influence could be seen everywhere, from the way people dressed, the cars they drove, and even how they entertained themselves. The Western life was a new way of life, the stepping stone to the future. Moving on to the 1980s, Malaysia began its journey in becoming a developing country, and it was the start of globalization in Malaysia. Malaysians were becoming more exposed to the cultures of the world and was becoming more advanced. And lastly, we have the modern day Malays. We can now see Westernization in various aspects of our daily life, the first one being the way we speak. The current version of Bahasa Malaysia that is spoken is very different to the language that the native Malays spoke. For instance, this is an example of how Malay people used to talk in the past.
Cepat. Tuan hamba bermaharaja lela di Istana Sultan. Mengapa menindakkan ketaatan?
A substantial portion of the language has words that have been influenced by its Western counterpart. In contrast to this is an example of how Malay people usually speak now.
Biar abang pergi kemas bilik dulu.
No, it's okay, Lana boleh buat.
No. You need to rest. Kan doktor dah cakap.
For example, words such as actor, subtopic, and automatic sound the same in Malay, but they only have different spellings. The act of borrowing English words is due to the inability to find the right translations for the English words, as well as people being accustomed to speaking English. This leads to the other trend in the way Malays speak, and that is the use of Manglish. Manglish is a hybrid between Bahasa Malaysia and English, where words from both languages are used simultaneously in conversation. It can be spoken and it can be written. An increasing number of people are using Manglish, and we can see this where 71.8% of Malay respondents in a survey said that they speak a mixture of English and Bahasa Malaysia at home. This is because globalization has opened doors to new concepts and terms that cannot be translated accurately. The increased use of Manglish also contributes to the decline of the use of Bahasa Malaysia, as people would forget the traditional Bahasa Malaysia. When the Malays are too accustomed to using English words, their Malay proficiency will decrease due to lack of practice. Apart from language, we can see the changes in the way Malays dress, where people are following the Western clothing trends. In a survey done to 103 participants, 93.2% of them wear Western clothing during their leisure time, and 75.7% of them are most comfortable when wearing Western clothing. Hence, it can be said that Western clothing is a popular choice among the Malays nowadays. However, another conclusion was that 86.7% of respondents still wear traditional Malay clothing during festivities or holy days such as Hari Raya. But even when it is worn, we can see that the designs of the clothing has been adapted to include certain Western influences. For example, the image on the left shows the traditional silhouette of the baju kurung, and the one on the right shows an example of a modernized baju kurung which can be often seen nowadays. The modern silhouette has larger sleeves, a shorter top, and more modern features, which are details that are inspired by Western clothing. This shows that in terms of clothing, Malay people still follow the Malay tradition to an extent, but still include Western influences. Another element of Malay culture that has been westernized is the type of food we eat and how we eat it. Traditional Malay food offers a myriad of dishes such as nasi lemak, satay, and various cakes. However, these foods have been evolved by people to follow Western food trends. This is proven as a survey done discovered that 56.3% of Malays have seen Western influence changes in Malay food in terms of the method of cooking, presentation, and the fusion of foods. But one phenomenon that takes the crowd is the increased use of cheese in foods. Cheese has dominated several traditional Malay dishes, the most prominent one being pisang goreng cheese, where grated cheese and chocolate syrup is placed on top of fried pieces of banana. When it was first introduced, people went crazy for it and it led to many pisang goreng cheese stalls opening up. While some might say that it is the destruction of a well-loved treat, others say that it is an improvement for the dish. But that is just the tip of the iceberg, as another food phenomenon in Malay culture is the increase of Western restaurants and cafes. This is evident where 100% of respondents in a survey say that they have seen an increase in Western restaurants. Cafes serving artisanal coffees and pastries have displaced the traditional coffee shops. Meanwhile, restaurants selling burgers and pasta dishes have overtaken the warung stalls selling Malay food. The way they eat has also changed, where if Malay people used to eat with their hands, more and more people are eating with the use of utensils such as the fork, spoon, or knife. The Western influence also goes into the way Malay weddings are celebrated nowadays. In a survey done, 68% of participants said that they have seen an increase of Western influence in Malay weddings. This is especially prominent in the bride and groom's attire as well as the decorations. This again is the effect of the media portraying weddings in the typical Western context. Now that we've seen the presence of Westernization in Malay culture, let's discuss the causes behind this phenomenon. The biggest reason is that Westernization is ever growing in Malay culture, that the influence from Western culture is too big. Social media and mass media present Western culture as being sophisticated and liberal, and a fine example of this is the American supremacy of the world. Nowadays, the American lifestyle is looked up to as a refined lifestyle, and this is the effect of media's portrayal of the culture. This leads to the idealization of Western culture, where the Malays look up to the culture, and this ultimately motivates them to emulate the Western lifestyle. However, this trend cannot be entirely blamed on the media, as we have seen it happen even before the independence of Malaya. The British colonization of Malaya played a vital role in the development of Malaysia into what it is today. One of the examples that can be seen is in the transportation and education sector. The British brought trains and introduced English to the Malays, hence it is not surprised that the Westerns, especially the British, are seen as the face of the future to the Malays back then, and this way of thinking has stuck around till now. Another cause of the rise of Westernization is the lack of education and exposure of Malay culture to the people. There is a trend nowadays where Malay culture is only practiced during special occasions, and this creates a mindset that traditional culture is something that is only practiced sporadically. This is problematic as it leads to a lack of appreciation for the culture, and in return, people, especially the youth, will forget about the culture. As we've seen one spectrum of the changes in Malay culture, let's look at the other side, Arabization. Arabization in Malaysia started during the 13th century when Arab and Indian Muslim traders would come to the Straits of Malacca to trade. This resulted in mixed marriages between the traders and the locals, which would lead to the Islamization of Malaysia. Fast forward a few years, we see the increase of graduates furthering their studies in Middle Eastern universities, namely in Egypt and Jordan between the 1980s and 1990s. When these students came back, they brought more than their graduation scrolls. They brought home a new way of thinking, and arguably more conservative perspective. This is because when you've been living in a country for a few years, they learn to follow their ways. This way of thinking has been spread within the Malay community. We can see the impact of Arabization in Malaysia in a few factors, which are the way they speak, the clothing they wear, and the lifestyle they live. The first aspect is the influence of the Arabic language on Bahasa Malaysia. Various Malay words have an Arabic origin, which is caused by the Arab traders that traded in Malaya, as well as the Islamization of Malaysia. There are many Malay words that are similar to its Arabic translation, such as Sabah, Haram, and Ziarah. Apart from this, Malays prefer to use Arabic words rather than Malay words in their speech, especially when it is about religious rituals. An example of this is how sembayang, which is Malay for pray, has been displaced by solat, or how buka puasa, which is Malay for breaking fast, has been displaced with iftar. This trend is highlighted by the Sultan of Johor in 2016, where he brought up how the use of Arabic words have displaced traditional Malay phrases. Another aspect worth noting is the Arab influence on what Malays wear. Nowadays, Arabic clothing has a rising popularity in the fashion choice of Malays. The jubah, a type of dress that can be worn by both men and women, is often adorned by Malays during holy celebrations and religious events. The female version of the jubah is usually black in color and has beading along the sleeves and the collar of it, while for the male version, it has a more subdued look, with it being plain colored. This choice is usually due to comfort and modesty, as the jubah is more loose-fitting compared to the traditional baju kurung or baju Melayu. Moving on, Malay weddings have also seen the effects of Arabization. This is proven through a survey made where 32% of participants definitely seen and 58.3% of participants may have seen elements of Arabic culture in Malay weddings. They can be seen through the clothing they wear and the custom and traditions, especially the henna night or malam berinai, and the type of food served. Even the music played has been influenced, as we can see Arabic music being played at these weddings. Arab culture has also affected what and how we eat. A survey done shows that 89.3% of Malay people have seen an increase of Arab restaurants in Malaysia. The main cause for this is the increased demand for it from not only Malay people, but also the increasing amount of Arab expatriates moving here. Looking at these factors, it is fair to say that Arabization is a legitimate phenomenon faced by the Malays. The question now is, what is causing it? Well, the main cause for it is a misconception that Arab culture equals Islamic culture. This is especially relevant since most Malays are Muslim. Malays think that by practicing Arab culture, it will make them better Muslims. The basis of this misunderstanding is that since Islam was founded in the ancient Middle East, that it must be the culture of Islam, right? Not exactly. Actually, there are even some Middle Eastern practices that contradict Islamic values, such as shisha smoking and belly dancing. Yet, it is a misunderstanding to be corrected. As said by the Sultan of Johor, when talking about religious faith, what is in the heart and mind is more important rather than external factors such as clothing. This statement highlights the main issue that Malays face when they equate Islamic culture and Arab culture. We have explored the influence of both Westernization and Arabization in Malay culture. Hence, the question is, which one is better? Both phenomena have their pros and cons. Westernization benefits Malay culture as it keeps Malays open-minded to other cultures and allows them to keep up with the progression of the world. Meanwhile, Arabization benefits Malay culture in the sense that it promotes better social values within the Malay community, since the conservative aspect of Arab culture could do Malay people some good. But both phenomena also have their negatives, such as how Westernization could lead to social problems and Arabization could lead to Arabic radicalism and ultra-conservatism within the community. One main disadvantage that both phenomena share is that they could lead to the erosion of Malay culture. And this disadvantage is a reality that Malay culture is facing, as seen in a survey where 54.4% of participants said that these phenomena will lead to the erosion of Malay culture. This statement can be further solidified with an example, that is the banning of the Makyung dance in Kelantan. Makyung is a traditional Malay dance that was banned in Kelantan by the Pan-Malaysian Islamic Party for its shamanistic traits which are deemed deviant. The protesters went as far as disrupting these performances by attacking them with sticks. In a talk by Edith Hu, a journalist and founder of Pusaka, an organization for the preservation of traditional Malay arts, he states that the ban was due to the fact that most of the members of the Pan-Malaysian Islamic Party were Wahhabis who had graduated from the Middle East. Hence, they had a goal to homogenize the Malay identity to an Islamic culture. Another reason for the ban is that they believe that the dance goes against Islamic teachings, ignoring the cultural heritage that the dance brings to Malay culture. The misconcepted relationship between Islam and Arab has created a goal where Malay culture and history is to abandon for more so-called Islamic ways. However, there is still one key benefit of Arabization and Westernization, and that is how they expose the Malay community to the different cultures of the world. With the world ever growing, people of different cultures interact with each other every day, and by going through these phenomena, it makes the Malay community more open-minded towards the customs and traditions of different cultures. Coming back to the question of which phenomenon is better, it is a matter of opinion really, as both phenomena have their fair share of pros and cons. The results of a survey done stated that 60.2% of respondents agree more with Westernization, thus proving the Malay community generally responds better to Westernization. This could be because Western culture is now regarded as popular culture, hence people would be more familiar with it. The influence of Western culture is also much larger than the Arab influence. This can be seen by the aspects we have discussed above, where the changes caused by Westernization is more prominent than the Arab influence changes. Apart from this, Westernization is also the more apparent phenomenon, as in the same survey mentioned above, 61.2% of participants said that Westernization is more apparent in Malay culture. The bigger question that should be considered is, are these phenomena evolving or eroding Malay culture? Well, a survey done concluded that 54.4% of respondents stated that it is eroding Malay culture, while the other 45.6% stated that it is evolving Malay culture. Both perspectives on the issue are justifiable. For example, the phenomena could erode Malay culture because it is displacing the traditions and customs of Malay culture. On the other hand, people can argue that the Malay culture we practice today is not even the same traditions that our ancestors used to practice. Hence, Malay culture has already evolved from its native state. So, to wrap things up, we've discussed what is Westernization, what is Arabization, what are the effects on Malay culture, and the causes behind them. In a bigger picture, both of these phenomena could just be part of the globalization that Malaysia is facing. Cultures are assimilating other cultures, and the lines that differentiate each culture are being blurred every day. In reality, culture is the traditions and beliefs that we practice in our lives, and as time progresses, these traditions and beliefs evolve as well. While the changes in society bring us a step forward towards global unity and development, we must not forget our roots that have cultivated us to become the people we are today.